Alright, so I promised I would make one more video, one more example of taking general conic form and returning it to standard form to find the center and radius here. So we're going to do that. The very first step you want to follow, your step one, is always going to be to pair up your x term with its x squared term. I usually leave a little space there. I'll pair up my y terms, my y squared and my 24y here, leave a little space there as well. And then I move my constant. Now here it's positive, so I'm going to subtract it from both sides. From there, all I want to do is one of two things. I can either focus on the x or the y, but both are going to use the same process. I also want to be careful not to leave off variables. I'll go ahead and start with the y first. I think most people are pretty good with the y term. The 24, if I cut it in half, will be 12. So if I square 12, we get 144. Now if I add 144 to the left of my equation, I should add 144 to the right of my equation. Over here with the x's, half of 28 is 14. So a less commonly known square here. Most people know up to 12, and that's sometimes 13. 14 squared, though, will be 196. So I took half of this and squared it to get to 196. I took half of this and squared it to get to 144. And we add both of those things to both sides of the equation. Now, off the top of my head, I'm not going to add that up. I can do it, but it takes just an extra little bit of brain power that we're just not going to waste right now. Let's go ahead and add those together. Now we're going to see here, adding all this up gives me a 21. And that's not very satisfying, but that's okay. It's not going to hurt anything. So, and what I mean by not very satisfying is it's not a perfect square, which is what we would really expect and hope for here on a problem like this. But what my hope is if you follow the process at the very least, this shouldn't be too bad. All we did was divide by 2 and square. Here we divided by 2 and then we squared. And then whatever we added to this side, we went ahead and added to this side to keep the equation balanced. The final thing to do then is to take each thing, so the y's and the x's, and return them to binomial form. That means like x plus a number all squared, y plus a number all squared, or x minus and y minus, depending on what you have. The sign that you're going to use, the plus or minus, is going to be determined by the middle term here. If this is positive, then you'll have x plus a number. If it's negative, it'll be x minus a number. And the number that you pick is still just the half. So here I see 28x. So I'm going to go in and say, okay, this is x plus 14 all squared. And in the same way, over here, half of 24 was 12. That's what we used to get the 144. And it's positive, so it'll be positive here. This is our standard form for our circle. And so when I go to find my center and my radius, well, this is the easiest part of the problem. You take the 14 and the 12. In this case, they're both positive, so for my center, they're both negative. And then our radius, in this case, is just the square root of 21, and I'm just going to leave it that way because it's not a perfect square. You would simplify here if you could, and if they ask you to round, you could do that as well. So I'll take a look real fast. We'll see the square root of 21, let's say it's about 4.58. So depending on who you're talking to, who assigns a problem to you or what you're trying to do with it, you may want that instead. I like square root of 21 because it's an exact number. There's no rounding involved. Having said that, there's nothing really else to the problem.